Good evening. It's time for a pensioners' protest. Keir Starmer clearly has a problem with old people. He's coming after your heating and now he's coming after your purse. Keir Starmer will be Keir Starver by the end of next year, with 17% of pensioners set to be consigned to a life of poverty under Labour. Now, it looks like he might enforce the cruel, heartless widow tax. The single-person council tax discount is a lifeline for elderly widows and the 4 million pensioners who live alone. They pay 25% less council tax, apparently. Labour are refusing to rule out scrapping that. Well, what else could happen? What's another lifeline for the elderly to have? The free bus passes, isn't it? Well, they might go too. Here's Starmer being questioned about both these things yesterday.
Following Labour's disgraceful political decision to scrap winter fuel payments with little notice to millions of pensioners, will the Prime Minister today rule out scrapping concessionary travel fares and council tax discounts, which also help millions of pensioners across the UK? Yes or no?
Prime Minister. Well, as he knows very well, I'm not going to preempt the budget. It will all be set out in due course.
A government spokesperson later came out and said, oh no, don't worry, we won't scrap the old bus passes. But how can you trust them when Keir Starmer has already flip-flopped on Brexit, on supporting Corbyn, on the winter fuel payments, on taxes on working people, on a big green plan, on free movement, on border security? There's two things people don't like about Sir Keir Starmer. Both of his faces. Talking of cutting the winter fuel payments, Starmer is refusing to publish the risk assessment report, OK? Is he trying to hide how many people this would kill?
But we know why he's hiding the impact assessment. The Labour Party's own previous analysis claimed that this policy could cause 3,850 deaths. So are the numbers in his impact assessment higher or lower than that?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're taking this decision to stabilise the economy. That means we can commit to the triple lock. By committing to the triple lock, we can make sure that payments of state pension are higher, and therefore there's more money in the pocket of pensioners, notwithstanding the tough action that we need to take.
All of this is happening whilst the government also refuses to tell us how many migrants we're paying welfare bills for. They won't tell us. Our great old generation who've paid into the system all their lives are getting hammered by a millionaire Prime Minister. He bought his own mum a 7-acre plot in Surrey, reportedly, in her later life, but he could be about to consign millions of Britain's brilliant elderly to a freezing cold, starving, isolated existence, and I think that's cruel. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We've got GBNews star Emily Carver. We've also got Conservative peer Lord Bailey and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Emily, I'll come to you first on this. They're not publishing the impact assessment, are they?
Well, apparently, it turns out, Number 10 have just said this, or their spokesperson has, that they never did one. So all we've got is the 2017 report that they commissioned, which said that potentially 3,850 people or so could die as a result of cutting these types of payments. So now it turns out they haven't really got one. What they may have is something related to Rachel Reeves and the Treasury, so the money side of things, but not actually how this may impact and harm so many pensioners. You know, sometimes you can exaggerate in these types of monologues and things, but I don't think you have. Older people have been surveyed. 55% say they'll heat their homes less. 40% say they'll cut back on essentials. 65% say they'll take cost-saving measures. 20% say they will eat less as a result of cutting these winter fuel payments. So you may well find that there are older people up and down this country who are not only deeply anxious about this, but who may actually stop putting food on their own plates as a result of this. And this is about priorities. It is. Isn't this? They've got money when it comes to GB Energy, which appears to be a vanity project. They've got money for international climate finance. They've got money for train drivers. So, priorities.
Sean, is this as shameful as it sounds?
I think what's really, really shameful for this, when they were in opposition, the government of the day suffered so many lectures about how they didn't care about people, how their measures were going to kill people. And at this case, Keir Starmer won't even do the impact study because I think he knows what will come back. And if you look at these things, there's two important things. it's a wickedness because they're bringing it in so quickly. Why would they do it in the middle of the year? Why wouldn't they give older people a notice so they could deal with this? And that's what makes it wicked. And on top of this, they've talked about the savings that will be made. Let people take up pension credit tax allowances or shows that. But if everybody who's eligible for that did that, it would cost more than the savings they're going to make. The bottom line is this is a political choice, and they've chosen to punish the most vulnerable people in the country. There are some 3.5 million pensioners who are at risk of losing that payment, who need the payment. The government don't want to do the work of means testing. That's another choice they've made. They are punishing pensioners, and that isn't right.
Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Freeze, Matthew.
Well, I mean, clearly it is going to be difficult for some pensioners, but let's remember that this is going to be taken away from a lot of prosperous pensioners as well. But government is about making tough decisions, and we saw things like the two-child benefit cap, so that if you don't get any benefits, your benefits don't increase if you have more than 2 children. We saw the bedroom tax, which when I worked for the Labour Party was our big campaign, where we saw people, penalised because they had a second bedroom for a disabled child, for instance, which the Tories imposed. And the same people who are now complaining about the winter fuel allowance were not making a fuss when other welfare cuts have to come into play.
If the Conservatives were doing this, you'd be up in arms. There is no doubt about that. And this council tax exemption for single households, more than half of the people affected by that will be pensioners. A lot of lonely, a lot of very elderly, vulnerable widows and widowers will be impacted.
I strongly think that we won't see that happen.
I hope not.
There's a very special thing about punishing pensioners. They have no ability to raise their income. That's a special thing about punishing pensioners. And they know that while they're doing it. And I come back to this. Labour gave so many lectures about cruel policy, about political decisions. This is absolutely cruel and is absolutely a decision. They spent money on train drivers that they could have spent on pensioners.
Well, you could go way down the list with all of that stuff. But, Matthew, when Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister, incredibly wealthy individual, as is his wife, and there would always be the massive clamour about this. Well, Keir Starmer's apparently a millionaire. He apparently, according to reports, was able to buy his mum a 7-acre plot in Surrey towards the end of her life. I think they had a donkey sanctuary on there as well. Well, there's millions of pensioners around the country right now who might not have anybody. Is Keir Starmer massively out of touch?
No, I mean, his mum was ill for most of her life, and he did that for her, and he was in a fortunate position to do that. Look, I think on the council tax, I think it would be completely wrong to get rid of the single person discount. There's a big case for getting rid of council tax and changing the whole system. It's a big controversial issue, perhaps one for another day. But it wouldn't just affect lots, as Emily says, millions of pensioner households. It would also affect people like single mums. So, I grew up in a single-parent household. My mum would have struggled to pay the full council tax. So, I think you need to think about the impact on the law. I suspect we will hear that ruled out and the bus pass gold-plated and safe. But the government needs to be clear, because at the moment it's giving the impression, it's kind of bleeding because it's giving the impression that it's going to come for these other things.
May I just say one more thing? We still don't have an idea, really, of where this £22 billion financial black hole is and what is made up of it. The Treasury won't release the details on what exactly that black hole is all about. We're just told, officials want to ensure that the figures are accurate before they're published. Well, if you're justifying these type of policies off the back of a £22 billion financial black hole, show us. Show us the calculations. I suspect
they haven't released them because their mantra is because of the last Tory government will be broken with detail. That's why they haven't released them. And what Matthew said is correct about the single-person discount, but it doesn't change the fact that the winter fuel payment is being taken away from some of the most vulnerable people in this country, and it's a political decision that the Labour Party has made.
And council tax could go up, and the energy price cap has gone up.
I have never known council tax not to go up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. No, 100%. Exactly that. There is also this idea, just to touch on Emily's point there, Matthew, of Department for Work and Pensions and HMRC combined not telling us the details on migrant welfare and benefits, etc. They're refusing to do that. They've obviously got the data. There's a similar situation when it comes to migrant crime. I suppose you could argue there's a prison cost in that. But they're also now not going to tell us what the cost of where this black hole is coming from. I mean, they are just withholding information that is objectively in the public domain and that they are using excuses for. I put it to you that the way that this could be portrayed is that we are paying for unemployed lazy, work-shy individuals. We're also paying a massive, whopping, great big welfare bill for people who just arrived in this country. And the people who are suffering the most as a result of this are people who've paid into the system all their lives, the pensioners.
Well, I think there are two things. I think, firstly, personally, I believe that information is power. I think, I believe in freedom of information, and the government does need to, answer the legitimate questions. I think that they will come out and publish the figures on the black hole. They did give some detail in areas like, in fact, the migration budget, which was literally the Tories were spending the reserves to try and plug that hole. I think on the second thing, I agree with you on worklessness, and actually, Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, in her very first week in office, made absolutely clear that, the clue's in the title, that Labour's mission is to get more people back into work, get the percentage of people of working age in work up. We're the only country in the world, in the industrial world, where the number of people in the workforce has stayed down since COVID. That needs to change.
Seems like it's a bit hard being in government.
Yeah.
Bit trickier.
It's quite hard defending it on the sofa, never mind making it in government.
You had a prisoner released in this early release scheme, immediately rearrested.
Yeah.
After about 30 seconds.
Well, and today, Diana Johnson, the policing minister, has had her purse nicked at the police superintendent's conference.
That is like not for her, obviously, but it is a comedy sketch.
If you wrote it in a comedy sketch, people say it's too far-fetched.
Well, I tell you what you wouldn't write in what it does defy reality is they actually arrested somebody, which is quite rare.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I hope it wasn't a police officer. It was a chimney sweep.
Sorry, that's what I appreciate you were joking, but I know that's an active case, and of course no guilt has been proven. So there we go. Right, I think we're out of the woods. All right, thank you. Lovely start.